One.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of Legal Bites. We're happy to have you with us here today. Our producer Jay's got the music playing in the background so loud that we can hardly hear ourselves. But Jay, can you lower it? Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate it.
No problem. There you go.
So we're really happy to have today's guest on Legal Bites. Our guest is one of the partners and founders of the Food Dudes, which is an amazing company. She'll give us a little bit of the history on it, but I've watched her career grow since she first started with this company, and I'm so happy and proud of everything she's achieved. Lindsay Klein is going to be our guest today. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi.
There she is. And of course, with me, as always, is our co-host, Scotty Too Hottie Fraser.
Hey now.
Welcome, buddy. Lindsay, a lot of our viewers have been writing into us already, very excited that we're going to have you on our show today. You've been in the hospitality industry literally your whole life, correct?
Yeah.
You started out working in restaurants?
Sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even before I was allowed to, technically.
Like most of us. I was washing dishes in my uncle's restaurant at 14 or 12. I don't even remember, but it was a long time
You
ago.
started the host, and then you made your way up.
Of course. So tell us, how did you get introduced to the concept of Food Dudes and the partners? How did you meet Adrian? Give us a little bit of background. I think our viewers would love to know the whole story behind the Food Dudes.
Sure. Coming out of university, like everyone else, I'm unsure of what I want to do. My parents really wanted me to be a lawyer, which is funny that I'm talking to you, Adam. And, everyone's fallback is always just to work in a restaurant, night shifts. It's a good scene. You make good money. And I did it for a long time. I realized that I loved doing it. Like, I liked hospitality, but I obviously didn't want to wear, a server uniform and serve tables my whole life. But I felt such a passion for it. And the only reason on why I was looking for a change, to be honest, I was a general manager of a restaurant. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to stay in hospitality, but not do the same thing every day. And when you work in a restaurant, you do the same thing every day. So some of my colleagues, work in restaurants and they love it. For me, I needed a change. I was dating a guy at the time, and I told him I was looking for a change. And he mentioned that he has a buddy who started a catering company. And I said, okay, show me the website. He showed me the website. And I thought, don't worry about it. It's okay. And he ended up messaging Adrian. And Adrian at the time had someone else who was in the position. Her name was Lindsay, which is convenient. And she had just given her resignation. So Adrian asked me to come meet him. And I went and met him. And we really hit it off. We just had the same thoughts. It was a great meeting. And I left and I went to my car. And I called my mom. I'm so excited. I said, I just got this amazing job. It's for this catering company. And she said, where's the office? And I said, I don't know. He interviewed me in a Starbucks. And he told me that the office was the building the next door. So I showed up for my first day of work. And I realized it was a residential building, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I knocked on the door. And there was a chain on the door. And Brent, Adrian's roommate at the time, came out in his boxers, opened the door and said, welcome to your first day of work, Kleiner. And I look inside. My first thought is, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. I looked into my office. It had one of those big back computers. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, of course.
It was pretty much the walk-in closet of the 2-bedroom apartment, which were my partners at the time. I called my mom again and I told her, I think I made a mistake. The phone kept on ringing though. And these clients were Adrian's either friends of his mother or clients that he had catered before. Once I started speaking to them and going into their home and realizing that they were allowing me to plan a 50th birthday party in their home and giving me free will to do what I want, I realized how much power I was in that position. Even though it didn't seem as cushy as a job as what I had just left, I knew that there was potential to grow. And so I think I turned around pretty quickly. I was pretty much obsessed by maybe my 5th day of sleeping on the couch.
So you're greeted by the partner in boxers. That's a great start.
Yes.
Let me ask you another question. The Food Dudes originally was more of a catering company, right? They had food trucks, that sort of thing. And then the business has developed, I think, over time. Now you're into restaurants, you're running hotels. Like the business has evolved tremendously. What do you think was the biggest impetus to that change, to going from a food truck and a catering company to a real all-around food and beverage conglomerate now?
Honesty, probably boredom. You know, we like, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Listen, catering is still to this day number one for us.
Right.
It's sort of what steers the ship. It is what we do. It's the reason on why the other things we do are so like well done. But yeah, like we were doing catering for about 3 years, maybe 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and we started to get into the market. And my partner Adrian just really wanted to buy a food truck. He travels a lot, and he saw the food truck scene coming up in the States, and he thought to himself, I want to buy a food truck. He took a trip to Miami, and at the time, I was the person responsible for the financials. And he gave me a call and he said, Linz, I need you to transfer $50,000 into this American account. I just bought a food truck. I don't know why he didn't buy it in Toronto. We still question ourselves to that day. But 2 months later, and a few stops at the border and a few reapplications, our first food truck came in, and that was kind of it. We knew that we could branch out and do other things, and that was exciting to us. And it does help our core competency now, having, you know, a restaurant to send our wedding client to, or having a food truck show up at a late night snack for a wedding. So it does help us. Catering is the one that sort of steers the ship. And the only reason I think we initially started to branch out is because we wanted to do other things. We wanted to keep it exciting.
Yeah. Well, and in those initial years, the catering truck was probably getting vandalized a lot by my co-host, Scott here. Scott had a food truck.
No, we didn't. Honestly, no. In all fairness,
Yeah.
Food Dudes, when we all started, and Lindsay, you probably remember, there was like 6 of us. There was Kaplansky's, Fidel's, us, Gourmet Bitches. And then Food Dudes came in the picture. And what they did was everything we did that was great, but they elevated the food.
That would make my partner really happy.
I have nothing but respect for Adrian and his food and those Nutella bombs and the things that you guys did. I was barbecue. You can only do so much with barbecue. You guys took the food truck and the catering to an experience level that if I was going to have a wedding, I don't want to hire me. I want to hire Food Dudes because it was an experience.
That should be the slogan of our company.
From the bottom of my heart, the greatest compliment I can give you, because you guys redefined food trucks, and food trucks were just, it's the catalyst to where you guys are now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it opened the doors, it created the business, and then you defined and decided how to make the business like grow.
So, yeah, I mean, the food truck wasn't at the beginning. Catering was at the beginning. And I believe that we started to tap into the market of venues. But the food truck did add a different element that the other caterers had. And same with the food truck, we had catering on the other end. So having that, I always call the truck an add-on. You know, it's like we had ice cream and now we sort of have the chocolate sauce too. So that was maybe the catalyst to making us cool. You know, like when we were just a catering company and our name was the Food Dudes, I feel people questioned it at the beginning. Like, are they really formal? Can they put out a sit-down dinner? So when we got the truck, maybe that made us stand out as kind of trendy and cool. And it's obviously like, advertisement on wheels. So we were able to hit an audience that we weren't able to hit before, because if you didn't have an event or you didn't have a budget to throw an event, you didn't really have the opportunity to experience Food Dudes. Whereas when we got our truck, we were able to showcase our product to people who only had, $15, $10 for a meal. And that was definitely helpful for sure.
Lindsay, at what point did you decide to become a partner in Food Dudes?
I mean, when did I decide? Immediately? When did I actually become a partner? Probably about, I think, 7 or 8 years ago when, and I'm thankful to Adrian every day of my life, but we sort of sat together and said, this is more of a partner relationship than, you know, an owner-employee relationship as I started to grow. And we had determined a certain percentage of shares that I would have, ownership that I would have, and shares that I would get. And we made it official. I believe it was about 7 years ago.
So halfway through, I guess you were there for about 6 years before that happened.
Yeah. When I started, it was only, we only had under 20 employees. I was handwriting employee checks. Like, I still remember those, like, handwriting employee checks with an Excel spreadsheet. And so I believe once it got into a stage where I was running the business, where we had different departments, and Adrian really recognized my worth, and he awarded me for it. So I'm forever grateful to him.
That's amazing. And what's it like being a female? So what's your official position, first of all?
I'm CEO.
Okay. So
but I've been event coordinator. I've been event coordinator. My whole resume is food goods. So here we go. I've been event coordinator. I've been event director. I've been chief operating officer and chief executive officer.
Well, that's amazing. And what's it like being a female in a world that's really male dominated? What did you have to do? How much harder did you have to work to get to where you are?
I mean, it's definitely hard. I had two very male dominant partners. You know, it was called the Food Dudes, and they were two dudes. So I always kind of sat in the shadows, like in the background. And I like that. You know, I am a private person. I always say, I run the business on the grounds, and Adrian runs the business on Instagram. I feel like hard work really just pays off. And even though the management group in the hospitality industry is male dominant, as long as you're a woman that is confident and hardworking and can admit fault, I think that's huge. Is that when you do something wrong, you can admit it and stand by it and show that you could learn from it. And that's sort of how I made my way. I was never the best server. I never had the best technique. I learned from my mistakes. I was confident, and I really, I stood by that. And I think that's really important, is that don't let it get down. I walked into a meeting with 10. It was crazy. This was crazy. The first business meeting I went to by myself, without Adrian, I was wearing a nice outfit, but I was wearing jeans and high boots, and I was wearing like a t-shirt, and I walked into a meeting at a law firm, not to be named, for a huge event. It was not to be named, but it was a 500-person event, and I was wearing high boots, 25 years old, 26 years old, and I walked in, and there were 8 men in like nice suits sitting around a table, and I was like, how the hell am I going to get through this? And I stood at the end of the table, and I put up my projector, and I was confident, and I was honest. I didn't sort of go in there and say, like, we're the best. I went in there and said, we're new to the market, and this is what we can offer, and this is why we're different. And that's it. I sold it. And when I walked out there, I never let the female part of me take over. I think that's important. And I embrace that, because I work with, if 80 made the decisions on a lot of the things, because of his male dominance, we might not have some of the clients that we currently have, but because I have a little bit more of a feminine touch, and I embrace that, I understand a little bit more, and I think that works well for both of us, and now he believes that too. So that's.
So we're going to be seeing the change of the name. Is it going to be called Food Dudes and Dudettes?
No, Dudettes. Food Dudettes.
No, Adam, don't get it wrong. Everybody's a dude, okay? I'm the best dude.
You're a dude. Good.
And I think we have 23 people in the office. 20 of them are women, okay? And where the office is? Right above the kitchen, dude.
Of course. I've been
food
there several
Dudettes.
times.
It's Dudettes.
So, that I go.
To be a dude, I think that, we have to treat dude and guy like people, and recognize that there's a lot of women that work for us, which is great.
It's important. And one of the things that I found, I go around a lot, I do lectures and I put on seminars for our food and beverage clients. And one of the things that I always end up hearing out there is that there's this glass ceiling for women in this industry. And I've never really believed that, because, and I think you're a perfect example of it, because it's tough for anybody in the industry to grow. You know, everybody starts out as a server or a dishwasher or a host or a hostess or whatever, and you really have to apply yourself. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not a job where you have weekends off. It's not a job where you get a year off for maternity leave. Like none of that happens in this industry. It's an industry that requires you 7 days a week and usually 15 to 20 hours a day sometimes, right? And it's the people that put in that hard work that always end up breaking the so-called glass ceiling and moving up in the industry. And we've seen so many of our customers, you know, have their CEOs or their COOs who are females nowadays. And 20 years ago, that was non-existent. You didn't see it. But today you see a lot more inclusivity and diversity in what management looks like. And I think that's crucial. If you were going to give some advice to a woman who's watching their program and interested in moving up, you know, maybe now she's a hostess or she's an assistant manager in a restaurant, and she wants to move up to upper management or ownership even, what advice would you give her?
Stand out, stand out. Food Dudes is so corporate now. So those long hours, that 15-hour day, the harder you work, the cooler you are. For us, that's out the window. 10 years ago, I admit, we used to write on our schedules. You'd look at the schedule and it would say prep, no time. Everybody came at 10, okay? And it would say prep or event. You didn't know when your event time was. You didn't know what you were doing that day. You just knew you came in at 10, and whenever it ended, it ended. Food Dudes now we're pretty rigid in the sense of everybody gets their maximum 44 hours a week, and we compensate for overtime, and we really believe in mental health and balance. But if you're going to be an executive or you want to make a difference, and of course we're going to schedule you for the correct hours, and we're going to reach mental health. That's so important. But if you want to grow, then do that extra time a little bit. I heard Adam say, you said you would ask people when you were a junior, you used to go to the seniors and sort of say, give me some work for the weekend. And the other juniors would say, are you nuts? But the reality is once you're indebted into the culture as an executive, have your freedom, have your vacations. I want to provide as much support. But if you want to get my attention and you work for me, no matter what position you are, because I tell you, every single person who works in my office, this is no joke. Every single person who works in the office started as a server.
Yeah.
Every single one, except for Arjun, who's my new director of finance, we just hired, who worked for a catering company. He is the only person. Food Dudes has our own language. And so hiring from somewhere else, but also because they stood out, because I sort of said, I have this one girl that works for me, and she worked for me in the pandemic. She worked for us, the Food Dudes, in the pandemic. And she worked in the hotel in-room dining. And in-room dining is a tough job. You have to set the tray. Someone orders one breakfast. You have to set the tray with the breakfast. You need the condiments. You need the bread on the side. You need the butter. It's like a whole ordeal for one breakfast. Then you got to wheel the cart up to the person's room. It's great. And she just did it with class, and even in stressful situations, she never took off her mask. She never broke a sweat. And I said to myself, she was an IRD server, and I could tell that she had something else. She's one of our new account managers. She runs 3 huge accounts for us right now. And that was only 14 months ago, 16 months ago, not that long ago, but she stood out to me, and she did the extra time. She came to me and said, she sort of said to us, work me I'll take every single shift at any time. She never complained. She came in, she had grace. And so, I would say stand out.
And you lead by example, because, you're a mom recently, and I remember I think you had your baby on Saturday, and on Tuesday you were working.
I was probably working on Saturday. To be honest.
Probably, yeah. I was having breakfast with Elaine at the X Hotel, and then you come, and it was like, I go, you just had a baby 2 days ago. You go, yep, I'm just here for a couple of hours, right? But that's the dedication, I think, and that's the hard work, and that's what separates the people that do from the people that don't. Like, and we see it more and more in our society. Like, there's people that say, no, we have retail stores as well that we operate. We have various businesses. I started as a room service waiter. I don't know if I told you that. I was a room service waiter at the Hotel Plaza 2 from age 16 to age 18. And man, the things I saw there, we can't repeat them even on the SVK network here.
That's the next podcast.
Yeah, that's how you know everything, Adam. It's the only reason on why you're in hospitality as a lawyer. It's because you understand their practice. And that's super important. And you cannot be an executive and you cannot be a manager of a restaurant and not know where the mop is. I always say that. It's called, if you don't know where the mop is and you don't know how to mop, then you're armchair quarterbacking. Can't tell someone to mop the floor well if you don't know how to do it. And I think it's so important that every position in hospitality is really crucial. If one position is down in a restaurant, it messed. If the host is out, it's messed. If a busser's out, one line cook is out. So everybody's really important, and it's important that the manager understands each of those roles.
Yeah, it's a team sport.
Definitely. Yeah, you learn that.
Let's talk about the business now. So we're just coming out of COVID, right? Everybody suffered during COVID. Some businesses did well, but everybody suffered a little bit out of COVID. And what we're seeing is we had Tony Elenis on last week, who's the president of the Hotel, Restaurant, and Motel Association, ORMA. And he was telling us that 60% of the restaurants out there today are losing money. And that's a scary thought because, the food and beverage industry employs over 600,000 people directly, 700,000 people indirectly. If 60 or 50% are going bankrupt, then you may end up with like 300,000 people out of a job. So that's not a good look for anybody, and certainly not for Ontario, whose GDP is dependent on food and beverage. And what we're seeing is a lack of support, a lack of even acknowledgement of how important food and beverage is to everybody in Ontario. In your mind, if you had a wish list from the government, and you could sort of have a direct line to the Minister of Finance, whether it's federally or provincially, what would you say to them in terms of what would be important in the food and beverage industry to help us get past the next hurdle?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone gives Ontario a really hard time. Like we opened up a company in Miami, and we did have people from the States saying, it's crazy where you guys are, you held back. So they did support us in terms of labor subsidies, as I'm sure you're very familiar, and we were very grateful for that. But I think that if I were to ask anything, they should look at the restaurants in the amount of time that they made them shut down and reopen, not just shut down, because I think there's a misconception is like the minute you reopen, you're just going to go back to where you were. But because everybody lost their employees and then had to rehire them and retrain them, there was a moment in time where it was, I can swear, right? No? It was freaking nuts. It was crazy. I mean, and my colleagues, and I'm sure you know it, but especially for catering, where they locked us down in January, and then in February and March, it's slower, but we don't know when we're coming sort of right back to normalcy. And then in April and May, it hit hard. So any company that was opening at that time, they kind of suffered because they didn't really know how much was coming back, how it was going to come back. But what restaurants didn't really understand, or restaurant owners or business owners didn't really understand, is how people would really, they forgot how to do their fucking jobs. Everybody, even myself, you should have seen Adrian and myself on the first sit down dinner. We had no clue what we were doing. We forgot. And so if I could ask the government anything, I think it would be for recovery time from maybe the second shutdown to when they reopened, and including the first 2 or 3 months that we reopened, because I have a feeling a lot of companies, like catering companies and staffing companies and rental companies, gave a lot of refunds or found themselves in situations where they collected deposits and then they couldn't fulfill the order because they didn't have the staff who knew what they were going to do. And that was so hard. If I could, and I would never, I don't think I would have the time, but if I could write a book, I would talk about the comeback of the pandemic for the hospitality industry, and not just not just when we went down, because at least when we went down, everybody was feeling it the same. You know, nobody knew what was going on. But when we were coming back, everybody expected the business owners to figure it out. Like we had a staffing shortage. People forgot how to do their jobs. People weren't in the best, like the morale wasn't the greatest. They just lost their job. Now they're back. Now they're working harder than ever. It's confusing. It's so confusing. So yeah, I think that it would be just some sort of, I mean, there's only one thing that the government can do right now is sort of give some sort of grant or some sort of quote unquote refund or subsidy or whatever it may be, but consider that time, because I don't think they do. And I do feel, thankfully, you know, it wasn't easy for us, but I'm really indebted to my customer service and how we approach our business. And, you know, our retention was really good on how we handled everything. So we didn't find ourselves, I think Adam would know, but we didn't find ourselves in any like legal situations, you know, thankfully, quote unquote. And that has to do with how we conduct ourselves in terms of business. But I'm sure there were a lot of companies that didn't really have the choice, and they didn't have the bandwidth to fulfill the promises that they made prior, because when they took the deposit or they made those promises prior, they had a company with experienced staff who had been doing it every day, who were already practiced. I always say it's like running on a treadmill every single day of your life and then taking a year off and then getting back on at the same speed. Your legs you're gonna fall on. And that's what sort of happened to everyone in our industry, for restaurants, for catering, for rental companies, a lot for events, you know? And so that's what I would ask government. Maybe look at that recovery time. They didn't give us enough notice. They shut us down too fast. Then they came back full throttle, and they need to think about that loss, that recovery, because some people lost their reputations too, which is, you know, super important, or shut down their businesses because of it. Adam, can you hear me? I can't hear you. It says,
Mute button, I guess, by mistake.
Oh,
fine, you know, I was gonna go like this.
No.
Yeah.
Mute. So,
you know what, Lindsay? I love you.
Lindsay, you mentioned, what I was saying was we definitely need help in the industry. And you mentioned that you guys have some businesses down south in Florida, and Florida didn't suffer the same perils that Canada did. You know, and DeSantis took a lot of flack for it originally, but at the end he came out smelling like roses, and he looked like a hero, right? Because he kept business open. And the amount of suffering, the amount of bankruptcies that we've seen here in Ontario, they weren't witnessed in jurisdictions that stayed open with a little bit more, you know, rules or laws in place. But I certainly think that the last thing Ontario needs now is more red tape and more taxes. And we had some guests on last week. One of them said we should be able to keep the HST maybe for the next 6 months or something, which would be a great idea.
Have to give a grant, you're right, or a subsidy. They can do it in backwards.
Yeah.
They don't have to give it to us. We just don't have to give it to them.
Exactly. Or give us credits for hiring people.
What is the government? Their plan right now is you need to have a letter. Was it TVR, TV?
Oh, yeah.
So, sorry, this is where I'm going to go down a fucking rabbit hole that I shouldn't.
Well, no,
but I should.
Yeah, you
but
should.
This is honestly, to me, this is like killing the industry.
So last week on our show, Lindsay, you may or may not have listened to the show last week. That the government in Ontario, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, through the Minister of Finance, has introduced
Who's a dick?
Yeah, who introduced a new requirement. We're gonna get censored again.
That's fine. You know what?
That's why you get kicked off.
So, hold on. Let me finish. So they introduced this new thing called the TVC number. And what that basically means now is that before your liquor license can ever be renewed or issued,
I know this.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah,
I
good.
didn't know this, but I applied to a government agency, which will not be mentioned, for a catering.
Oh no, hold on, stop. Let's mention the agency.
No, you're fine. They're a beautiful organization, the Science Center, and they're a government organization. And they asked me for a TCV number. And we were submitting the application on the day of, and I looked and I had one, but I didn't know that what we found out is that you have to renew it every year, and you sort of have to pay for this renewal every year. Why?
Yeah, it's another tax grab.
It's a scam.
I don't know if it's a scam, but at the end of the day, it's more work.
It's a scam.
It's more work. It's more red tape, and it's more money to an industry that just can't afford it. Yeah. And I think that's the key. I think, no one actually feels the pain that the industry does on a daily basis. They're short-staffed. Their customers haven't all come back yet. The food costs have gone up. The employment costs have gone up. Rent has gone up. Property taxes almost doubled in Toronto.
Everything's gone up.
Yeah, but what hasn't gone up is profits, right? So people are complaining, the cost of going out for dinner has gone up. Yeah, it has, because the grocery bill has gone up too, right? So we're in a very difficult situation right here. And I think what we need is the government to understand that, hey, we can't afford to lose more restaurants, more bars, more hotels, more nightclubs. We just can't afford that. So something's got to give, and you've got to start worrying about the people in this industry too, not just about, battery plants and but
if they don't do something, you're going to lose owners, operators.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's happening, right? Lindsay, in terms of food dudes, besides having great legal representation,
sorry, I just had to laugh there.
What else have you found beneficial in your business model?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you over Scott's laugh.
No, I was just laughing. Are you paying Adam with like baskets of vegetables and fruit?
Yeah.
Because apparently that came up last
week,
episode, that Adam just wants vegetables and fruit.
Don't take away a barter situation between Adam and I. Of course, we're.
So she said, "Yeah, you know what?
If Lindsay wants to bring me a chocolate brownie instead of paying me, I will accept that gladly."
Listen, liquor license for the Honda Indy for a 50-person party in your house. No contract necessary.
You know what?
No.
I love both of you.
We're just joking.
Leave it at that. Love both of you.
So Lindsay, seriously, secrets to success. What can people strive towards, work towards to make sure their business is successful in this tough economy?
Oh my God, there's just so much stuff. The thing is that I believe that people don't want to pay, but I also believe that people don't have time. And so because everybody is fighting with the clock to make money, quote unquote, because everything's more expensive, they're hustling more, they're busier, they're trying to get with it. For us, I can't raise my prices too much because a lot of our clients are personal weddings we have to be affected by expenses. But I speed up the sales process. In the pandemic, we created a custom ERP that I believe can quote and execute an event within 5 to 7 minutes, from top to bottom, from sale to execution to putting all the staffing in, top to bottom. Whereas something like that used to take maybe 2 to 5 hours because everything was manual, and I was so I'm saving on the other end, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
by optimizing processes, by making sure that our employees are happy, that we create resources for them to work stronger and faster. Making it easier for the client too. I believe
so efficiencies, basically. Find the efficiencies.
Find the efficiencies, streamline the processes, find the efficiencies, and cut your expenses on the other end. Some things may go up, but you had that time, or you still have that time in the pandemic to, exchange for some of the things we used to do. Used to be lengthy process that required more people or more software, and now we're tightening up those processes to make sure that we can, cover the extra food costs, the extra gas, quote unquote. That's sort of my take on it, is strategize on how you could maximize your profits by, optimizing efficiencies and making
Great point.
procedures.
I wanted to get to some questions that we're getting from our audience. The first question is from my wife, Helene. She says, "Stand up straight."
I'm sorry.
And secondly, she said, "Ask Lindsay if we could buy shares in Food Dudes."
No, not currently, but if and when available, the two of you will be my first call.
Perfect.
So I will save on legal fees.
Yes, we can barter shares for legal fees. Perfect. I love it.
Wow.
You heard it first.
Wow.
Scott's been asking for that
You
for
know what?
years.
For the record,
never got
over the last 2 weeks, I've now learned I could have paid my legal bills with a basket of fruit.
Not fruit, vegetables.
Same shit.
It's not the same shit.
It is the same shit.
These people didn't have money. They can't. I didn't even. I did the work.
I didn't have money, but
Anyway,
never mind. You know what? It's all you.
Yeah. Buying those vegetables anyway.
And there you go. Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on to Legal Bites. It was great to have you. I hope that our guests have learned a lot and have been inspired by your story, because I think it truly speaks to the epitome of what it means to sacrifice and work hard. And I wasn't kidding. I'm telling you, I think the second day after Lindsay gave birth, she was back at work. And I don't know how you do that. That was just amazing. Even Helene, who is a champ, was shocked.
I didn't have that much of a choice. It was literally the hardest moment. It's like, what's happening in life? I'm like, I don't know. I just had a baby, but yeah, I love it. So good. If hard work is sort of what got me where I am. If you ask anyone, that's probably what they would say.
Absolutely. And I've seen it firsthand. So again, very proud of you and so happy that you were here today. Scott, as always, you were great. Thank you very much for your insensitive comments towards me.
As great as I could be. Not great.
You were definitely nice and appropriate, I thought. Yeah.
Thank you.
You don't know him very well. That's all. Yeah.
Listen.
No worries. Jay, thank you very much for being our producer today and having us get away with all the technical difficulties without much damage to the show. Greatly appreciate all your work behind the scenes. So I guess we'll sign off for episode 3. We'll look forward to seeing everybody 2 weeks from today for our next episode.
And we have a special announcement.
Yes, we'll have a special announcement for that episode. We can't wait to tell you about
Scotty
it.
Too Hotty, he's got a new venture.
Yes, there's a new venture that's coming out. He's looking for investors. So
I am. So we'll see you guys next week.
Perfect.
2 weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Goodbye, everybody.
Jay, love you.